There's an article that Okwi and Wezer wrote in a journal he founded with Salah Hassan, which was a very important journal on African art. And in the first issue, it was called Redrawing the Boundaries. And the boundaries he describes in this article are the boundaries of educational systems and museums that have taught us certain things and left out others. Others, in the case of this essay, being the most important, significant African art movements that have not been included in the broader narrative. So redrawing the boundaries, the first meaning of it is establishing your own boundaries and your own definitions to reclaim that word, modernism, to question when did it start, when did it end, is it still occurring today? If we're looking at changing societies, changing structures, conversations between tradition and modernity, innovation, who is to say that that ended in the 19th century? Who is to say that it is not as current now as it was then? And secondly, redrawing the boundaries also speaks to the artists who are in this exhibition who created their own boundaries, who created their own modes of viewing, who created their own modes of circulation, who not only had a practice, but in many instances were teachers, founders of the fine art societies, established galleries, established art supply stores, many of which we pay homage to in the timeline or the, what I like to call constellation of moments upstairs. So they were so much more than just the practice or the works that we see on these walls. They redrew their boundaries and they claimed a new meaning for what it was to be an artist in that particular time. So if we think of these works, as I've called it, as modernist aesthetics, they're a response or a language or visual material that allows us to see this history in a tangible way. I almost like to think of it as art allowing us to have metaphors that are material, that are in front of us. There are particular walls in this exhibition that I had dreamed of allowing to emerge, and it's been amazing that we've been able to find the collections that have allowed us to create those conversations. One such wall is in the first section of the exhibition that looks at public space and landscape, but is also questioning our relationship to the landscape, going beyond landscape painting, looking at collectives that worked primarily in the landscape, looking at artists that saw landscape as a tool of documentation and as citizenship as well. You know, our relationship to how things are changing, evolving, and also remaining the same. And two pieces in this section include a work by Abdelkarim Al-Urayad, who is a very important founder of the modern art movement in Bahrain. And next to it, a work by Abdelhalim Radwi, who is a really seminal figure for Saudi, for the region, and for Jeddah. The work by Abdelkarim Al-Urayad is coming to us from the Bahrain National Museum, and the work by Abdelhalim Radwi is coming from the Art Jamil collection. And these two pieces next to each other show us two bustling city centers, right? So in one we see Jeddah al-Balad, and in the other we see Manama, and both of them at periods where you have these emerging, bustling, alive spaces. Include a work by Jassim Zaini, who was a very foundational figure in Qatar, who taught all the artists from Qatar who are in the exhibition. And he has a work called Features of Qatar. And in this work, he used to have family members sit to do portraits for him. And then he would take their photographs and later reimagine them in different ways. He thought of himself as an artist of memory. And for him, it was very much a mission, documenting heritage, preserving heritage through his art. If one is not a regular exhibition goer, if one sees these pieces, for example, there was one visitor to the exhibition who was immediately attached to a piece that had this very beautiful story from the Quran, in which there's a snake and these eggs and this cave. And she was so moved by it because it was a representation of something in a visual art form being shown in a very specific way that she was immediately able to connect to. I think this also applies to self-portraiture. This applies to moments of seeing the city you live in a painting. This applies to moments of seeing myths in a painting. So this possibility of self-representation and the beauty of engaging with self-representation is something really wonderful. I feel people feel very seen in this show.